event. There was like a march and photographers, and I was all set to march with them. They placed us, they had me in the front line. And then George Bush came out and got in the march, and I left. I decided I wasn't marching anywhere with George Bush.
Amen. No.
The Selma movement stands for nonviolence and peace and democracy and fairness and voting rights. And George Bush stands for just the opposite. He stands for violence and war and stolen elections.
That's right.
And for goodness sake, his administration had people tortured. I think this occasion was not appropriate for him to be here. I think for him to appear to be leading people involved in the nonviolent movement in this country, for photographs of that to go across the world, would make it look as though we have sold out.
That's right.
I think that is an insult to people whose lives were taken. Reverend Reed, Jimmy Lee Jackson, Viola Liuzzo. It's an insult to me, and I think it's an insult to everybody who really does believe in nonviolence. That being said, I want to mention just a couple of things that I think might be of value as we continue the struggle now. And the first thing is, I think it would be a huge mistake for Americans to leave the future of this country in the hands of elected officials. Elected officials are not going to do what's necessary in the interest of this country. It's important, critical in fact, that citizens take the interest of this country into our own hands, use nonviolence, and make the necessary changes. I like to ask, suppose we had waited for elected officials to desegregate restaurants, lunch counters, public accommodations, buses, and to get the right to vote. I think 50 years later, we would still be waiting. My second point that I'd like to bring up is the issue of protest versus a nonviolent campaign. We've seen, like, the Occupy movement a few years ago, and now the Hands Up movement. And I believe that young people are on the right track. They are taking matters into their own hands. But one thing that I have observed is that I think sometimes we do not know how to differentiate between protest and a movement. In protests, it's just what the word says. I protest this. I do not like this. Very often the powers that be know that we don't like what's going on, but they're determined to do it anyway. On the other hand, a nonviolent movement or a nonviolent campaign starts where you are right now, causes you to set a very clear, concrete objective And I like to say also that it should be a written objective. Nobody can give you what you want unless you know what that is.
That's right.